Hello and welcome to the YYC Soccer Podcast. My name is Jason Kmet and my co-host is Scott Stresser. Hey, Scott.
Hi, Jason. How's it going?
It's good. I think my heart stopped a couple times an hour or two ago, but I think I've recovered sufficiently.
Yeah, once again, we're recording after a big game for Cavalry FC. Tonight, they were playing Pumas UNM in the CONCACAF Champions Cup, second leg. Yeah, big game, lots to talk about. I'm excited to dive into it. But no, I'm doing well. It's been a long day, but I'm happy to talk about some Calgary soccer stuff.
For sure. And if you are a new listener to our podcast, Scott, as I always ask you every episode, what is the YYC Soccer Podcast all about?
So our podcast is all about soccer in Calgary. So we talk about the amateur, collegiate, and professional teams and players, all the way from the city's youth and grassroots and amateur teams and players up to the university and professional levels.
And as you said, we're going to be focusing a lot of our time on the match, Calgary FC against Pumas. We'll also spend some time talking about Calgary Wild, who have begun training and new signings. And we'll also talk a little bit about one of our favorite former Cavalry players and where he's ended up in Europe.
Yeah, Daan Klomp, we found out recently, he's not going to be staying in Australia with Adelaide United. He is going to Belgium to play for a team in that country's second division.
We'll dive into that a little bit more in a little bit, but let's start off with the big match in the Champions Cup.
This is Marco Carducci, and you're listening to the YYC Soccer Podcast.
So, Jason, a bittersweet evening for Cavalry FC down in Mexico City. They battled hard. Can't deny that, but ultimately came up short, losing 2-0 to Pumas. They faced a lot of adversity, and you could argue that they were really unlucky. They played half of this game down a man.
It was an interesting match in the sense that, I think we all knew that it was going to be really, really challenging to advance. But when you really look at it, there were a few things that really worked against them. And it just coulda, shoulda, woulda, just a few small things, and they could have advanced.
Yeah, so as we mentioned, it was a 2-0 loss. Because Cavalry won the first leg last week 2-1. That means that Pumas advances to the next round 3-2 on aggregate. So they won tonight. Both of their goals came in the second half. Striker Guillermo Martinez scored both goals. Really, really good goals. Jason can't lie about that. But Cavalry went down to 10 men on the cusp of halftime. Jay Herdman was sent off for a foul in the box. Marco Carducci was able to save the penalty kick, and the score was still 0-0 at halftime. Pumas players were actually booed as they entered the dressing room or left the pitch. But it was always going to be difficult down a man to replicate the defensive effort throughout the entirety of the second half. And it was quite apparent playing at altitude, playing in a warmer climate than they're used to, that the Cavalry's players were getting pretty exhausted throughout the second half.
Definitely. You could see it near the end, but let's just dial it back here a little bit to that first half right now. I want to talk about sort of everything that sort of led up to the one red card and then the other red cards. So to start with, I thought, Cavalry was very disciplined and playing very well on defense, and they had virtually no possession at all, but they were doing pretty well. And there was a red card called against Charlie Trafford.
Yeah, we didn't mention this yet, but this happened just 15 minutes into the game. So you can imagine the impact a sending off that early would have had on the dynamic. This was a terrible call, and fortunately for Charlie Trafford, but also fortunately for Cavalry fans, the VAR reviewed it and decided that it wasn't a red card, which it never should have been, and Trafford was given a yellow card instead. So what happened was he got the ball cleanly, and then because his tackle was a sliding tackle, he clattered into the player from Pumas. His cleats did hit the Pumas player's midriff, but there's nothing you can do, right? You can't stop your momentum or your inertia after you slide into the ball. You have to just keep sliding, and that's exactly what Trafford did. So fortunately, this red card was rescinded, and the match was able to resume 11v11. But of course, half an hour later, Pumas did get their man advantage. And it was actually a pretty similar play with Jay Herdman getting the ball first. But in this case, I would say that his studs hit the shins of the Pumas player. And this could have been a pretty nasty injury if his leg was a little more anchored to the ground.
So I want to ask you about that, Scott, because I think you probably have a better grasp of this sort of thing than I do. But when I watched the Trafford play, I was looking for something that I would sort of define as reckless on that challenge or dangerous, and I didn't really see that. But then when I watched the Herdman one, I don't think there was any doubt that it was a quote unquote worse tackle, and I think that we were texting each other, and I think we both kind of were suspecting that the penalty was going to get called on VAR. But can you just sort of walk me through about why that was a red, like a straight red? Because I think it was definitely a penalty looking back on the replay. But what were your thoughts about that? Because I just don't know if either I didn't think it was a red or I don't know enough about what they're looking for to call it a red.
Yeah, I used to play, and I also used to referee, albeit not at a high level. And I agree with you that I thought, okay, penalty and yellow card. But I think just because of the danger element and the fact that the Pumas player definitely could have gotten seriously injured, this could have been a leg breaker. This referee, we'd already knew at that point, he's not going to let anything go. He's going to make calls. It was probably a bit reckless from Jay Herdman, but yeah, the fact that they got the penalty and the red card was a bit of a double whammy for Cavalry to contend with.
There is an element of human nature that the referee called a yellow card. And although I think we established it wasn't the right call, when he had that taken away from him, somehow you would think that he would be kind of looking for an excuse to call a red to sort of make it back to the way he thinks it should be.
Yeah, and Tommy Wheeldon Jr. said that very thing in the press conference. He said he felt that the referee felt like he needed to make amends for the original sending off. He actually, the words he used were the referee was desperate to send somebody off. So you might be hearing about that from.
I think he's going to get a call from CONCACAF, but I don't know. I can't say that I blame him at this point. I get where he was. I get what he was saying there.
Yeah, he was clearly, upset and disappointed in the post game. It feels like Cavalry was so close to achieving the nigh impossible. The win last week was such an upset, and this week was always going to be harder. Going down to Mexico City, Pumas were going to play a stronger lineup, which they definitely did. But, grinding out a 0-0 is possible in these cup games, and Pumas were getting frustrated and I think maybe a bit nervous, knowing that they were on the cusp of being eliminated to a team that is not even 7 or 8 years old yet. Without that red card, who knows how the second half would have played out. This game could have maybe finished 0-0 and Cavalry would be advancing and Pumas would be, as Vancouver Whitecaps experienced 6 years ago, embarrassed. But Tommy Wheeldon Jr., there was a lot of shoulda, woulda, couldas, I think, in the post-game comments, but he was definitely proud of his players' effort, and that came across in a lot of his answers.
Yeah, and let's talk about some players. Like I think the first person I want to mention is Marco Carducci. Like we're talking about this red card and penalty. Well, he saved that penalty and did really well and on that, and he had one or two other saves that I thought were really impressive. So even though he did in the end allow a couple of goals, I thought his performance was overall pretty good.
Yeah, the penalty save was a really, really great save. And actually, in the first or second minute of the second half, he had to make a reaction save. It was a long distance shot, but I don't think he would have seen it until quite late. And he had to get down low to palm this ball away. And this was a spectacular save, probably even more impressive, in my opinion, than the penalty. And Marco, the two goals that Pumas scored, I don't think any goalkeeper is saving those. So I wouldn't fault Carducci at all. Yeah, he had a really, really strong game, showed a lot of leadership. And the defenders in front of him played really well as well, right? I really would want to single out Eric Kobza as well as Callum Montgomery. I thought they were both really solid in the first half. And Nicholas Veiling, who was playing at fullback. Jason, you mentioned this, and I think I may agree with you that he's probably a better fullback than winger.
He seemed like he was able to do the things that needed to be done at playing that position, and there's no doubt that you would rather have Fraser Aird there. but I thought he filled in rather capably overall. And yeah, so I think that worked out well. And yeah, I would agree with Eric Hobbs that that's the best match he's played for Cavalry, in a while. Because, I think last year he had a little bit of a sophomore slump and injuries and stuff, but he really looked good out there tonight. I was very impressed.
Yeah. And while we're talking about the defenders, I would say Bradley Camden-Fayewo, he was the only player who didn't look gassed in the last 10 minutes.
I don't think he could have played another 30, no problem.
Yeah, he's a machine. I know he takes his conditioning really seriously in the off season, and you could tell, right? Like, he's fit, and he would not let the players boss him around. I mean, he's the one who bosses them around, and yeah, he won his battles really well, and basically everyone in Cavalry's back four had a really strong game in my opinion.
A couple other players that are probably worth mentioning. Tobias Warshevsky, he played really well as well. I think, he was causing the Pumas defenders a lot of problems, and ultimately he didn't score, but I think that he still acquitted himself rather well overall.
Yeah, and Schmidt Schum is another one who seems to pretty much always play well in that pocket, in that defensive midfield slot. He and Charlie Trafford started, and then I know that Diego Gutierrez came on for the second half. I really like that partnership. It was, it played a major role in Cavalry winning the championship last season, and I am excited to see those two line up next to each other when we kick off the regular season here in a few months.
Wasn't that end, like the end there where Cavalry was starting to press and we're getting some chances? That got pretty exciting there. That Moosey play, like I was watching that happen, and I thought, geez, this could be it, and didn't quite come together. But that was a real moment, though.
It wasn't it? It was a long ball over the top, and it looked like a nothing ball, but Moosey showed a lot of heart, even though it was probably a 40-60. He managed to beat the Pumas defender to the ball and muscle his way into Pumas box, and he got a shot off, but it was from a really tight angle, and Alex Padilla in Pumas goal was able to block it with his foot. I do wonder, could he have laid that off to Kanija Elva, for instance, who was in a pretty good position? But I think at that point, you really just have one thing on your mind, and that's get the ball on net, and at the very least, maybe a rebound will come out. But yeah, this was a great way for Cavalry to finish the game with that attacking intent and show that, even though we've been defending pretty much the entire match, we still have a little bit in us, and if you let us, we're going to punish you.
That's kind of where we're at. So I think the club can, hold their heads high and be proud of what they did, even though they're not advancing. And I think what we've seen here over the past week is the amount of buzz that's been created, in the soccer world over this has been pretty cool to see. And a heck of a way to start your season. You're still really almost 2 months away from your regular season openers, or like 7 weeks away or something like that. Yeah, I think that's a pretty decent start to the year.
Yeah, they still got 3 trophies to play for, if you can believe it. There's the regular season, there's the CPL playoffs, and of course there's the Canadian Championship. And I think a tie like this, 2-legged affair against one of the best teams from Mexico, should give Cavalry a lot of confidence for the upcoming Canadian Championship. Really excited to get the proper season underway. And I guess is a good time now to segue into talking about the regular season, because we just got the schedules released a day or two ago.
It was announced that Cavalry's first match of the year will be on the road, as it usually is, and they're going to be playing Forge on Saturday, April 8th.
Yeah, it's not called Tim Hortons Field anymore. I think it's just called Hamilton Stadium or something. Like, I think they don't have naming rights quite yet, but it should be good, right? Rematch of the playoff championship game. Forge has made some really good moves this off season. It should be a really intriguing way to start. And then a week later, they get their home opener, and I think the same opponent as last year, Vancouver FC. That's taking place on April 15th at 5 p.m. And Jason, it's very nice to see that this year almost every home game is going to be on the weekend.
14 matches this year. 9 of them are on Saturday afternoon, 3 of them are on Sunday afternoon, and 2 of them are on Friday. And interestingly enough, it's the first and last home games of the season are on a Friday. The first one, the one on Good Friday, and then the last one And that last one is the only night game they have all year. It's the only time they start, like have a 7 o'clock start. So I know Cavalry typically doesn't play a lot of night games, but they really don't play a lot this year.
No, but I really like this schedule. I think it should maximize attendance. And as you mentioned, the championship last year and the series against Pumas probably created a lot of buzz and should hopefully contribute to the vibrancy of those games and the attendances. Another thing I noticed is the length of the season is a little bit longer than we've seen in the past. Obviously the regular season has never started this early before, right? April 8th, and I believe the regular season goes all the way up until like October 18th or something like that, or that's when the playoffs get underway. So the season will probably.
I think that's that weekend of the 18th. I think is the final weekend of the regular season.
Yeah, and then you still have the playoffs after that. So we'll probably see the postseason stretch into the second week of November potentially.
Yeah, it's already set. I think that the way it works out is that the final will be the same weekend as it was this year, which is the second weekend in November. The end of the season is the same, but I think the season starts a little bit earlier, like you were saying. So that's where the added length comes in. It's on the front end, not the back end.
These two recent games that we've been able to watch has really fueled my own excitement for the 2025 campaign to get going.
For sure. Let's talk about Daan Klomp. The Daan Klomp watch, I guess, is finally over.
Yeah, he has joined a team in Belgian second division called RAAL La Louvière. I'm assuming this is in the French-speaking part of Belgium. They play in the second division, which, Jason, we know means that Daan Klomp's new team will be taking on Calgary and Scott Kennedy's club, KAS Eupen. And that game is only a few weeks away, as you noted.
I think it's still in February at some point. I think the last weekend in February. So this team is located just very close to the French border. And you look at all of their stuff online, everything's in French. So it's pretty clearly in the French part of Belgium. And they're doing well. They're currently in third place in the Challenger division, I think is what they call their second division. So This is a team which has a legit chance to get promoted this year by the looks of things into the first division.
Yeah, they're definitely in the race for a promotion spot. I think they were a new addition to the second division, however. I think they only just recently got promoted, so they're definitely punching above their weight. I was thinking when I found out that Daan Klomp wasn't going to play in Australia, I was assuming when I saw that it was Belgium, this could have to do with family is probably still in the Netherlands, and Belgium is, of course, right next door. So playing in Belgium makes it probably very easy for him to see his family compared to, the 3 years that he has spent in Canada.
I think another factor too is, as you mentioned, this is a relatively new club. Like they just got promoted, I think this past year to the second division, and they're ambitious. Like I did a little bit of research about the team. They've only been in existence for a very short period of time. There was a team in the same city that I think it went under, and this is sort of the revival of a pro team in that city, which is La Louvière, the same name as the club there. And yeah, I think they're pretty aggressive on trying to move up. So that would be a relatively promising sign for if you're joining a club like that, one that has ambition.
Yeah, there's an interesting pipeline between the CPL and the Challenger League in Belgium. Another former Cavalry player who is playing over in Europe, who we've talked about quite a bit lately. But Bim Pepple has scored his first goals for his new club in England's fourth division.
Last Thursday, he played, and Chesterfield won 5-2 over Doncaster. And he got his first two goals. That's pretty positive start for him there. I think this was his fourth match. So, or I think it was his fourth match that he started. So it took a few to get going here, but he's opened his account.
Yeah, he's having a great season. He spent the first half of it with Southend United, one division down in the fifth division in England. And with them, he had 7 goals in 19 matches. So he's probably the most prolific season of his career since making the move over to England. Happy to see him finding success.
For sure.
So before we transition out of talking about Cavalry, we did tune into Tommy Wheeldon Jr.'s post-game press conference tonight, as we alluded to. So we're going to run that audio now, and our listeners can hear what he had to say immediately after the 2-0 loss.
The result could have been any different tonight. How much did the send-off affect your team tonight?
Listen, we knew we had to be better than we were last week coming here. I said this is a historic club, 3-time champion, and we knew we were being tough, and we knew that we'd face the best players Pumas has, and we did. We didn't realize we would do it with 10 men for as long as we did. Hopefully we made you sweat, but we gave it our very best, and I can't be more proud of the way our guys did, and we're only 5 weeks into our preseason. I've not seen it. And listen, and that's not me making an excuse. On the live footage, he's played the ball first. So I don't know what the referee, but I think he was desperate to give a red card because he had one overturned prior. So it was always going to be tough against that official.
Hi, good night. My name is Ogirata from Multimedia. Nice to meet you. I just want to know if you believe the attitude of Mexico City will affect the performance of your players. Thank you.
No. I think the players ran what we would say in English, their socks off. And to do it with one man less shows that the altitude wasn't a factor. The one man less was the factor. And like I said, it took that sending off to maybe change the game.
Hey, Tommy, I guess just how proud were you of the defensive effort from your side today, obviously? Like you said, down to 10 men, but, especially in the first half, you were really able to limit almost all their chances.
We knew we would have to defend. It's like I said, the players that Pumas put out, I think we've earned their respect. And we knew that we had to change our shape to defend. We were getting close to half time when the penalty was given and then the sending off. So I think it's been a tie of VAR, because I know there was that Toby's goal in the first leg to Charlie sending off to the penalty to the second red card. But I think what I've got to reflect on is over 180 minutes, one goal different. And we played with one man less. I mean, come on, we're 7 years old and almost, and we've played a historic club. So I'm very proud of the performance and the attitude of my players against what I would call a giant in Mexican football. I'm thankful to be able to learn this lesson, because with it, we can only get better. Last year when we played Orlando, we got blew out. This year, we gambled and we played it within one goal. We'll be stronger next year.
Yeah, just building on that, does this give not only you guys, but, CPL clubs in this competition in the future belief that, you guys really can go out and go toe-to-toe with, these champions of the region?
I just think that I try and tell these boys, no matter who you're facing, play the game, play the moment in front of you and rise to it. And our boys did. I mean, look at Cobbs' header near the end, Ali Musi's shot. If that goes in, we're forcing extra time. That's crazy. We shouldn't have even been close, but we were, because we stuck together, we gambled together, and we went for it. And like I said, very proud of the guys, given the circumstances they've had to face tonight.
A message from the Cavalry support team. It says, just let Tommy know that all of the Cavalry supporters back in Calgary are so proud of the team and can't wait to see them back to Spurs medals on April 18th. And the question will be, what do you think about the heart shown today? And what do you see ahead for the regular season?
Well, I think what we'll do now is, I think the boys have earned themselves a few days off. They'll be exhausted after playing with a man down in tough conditions. But we'll keep going. We learned a lot last year and end up winning the championship because the lessons we learned in CONCACAF. We faced a giant tonight and we're very close. So I think what we'll do is we'll lick our wounds and we'll return back to Calgary and we'll go again and prepare for the regular season.
Yes. Do you have any comments about the yellow card?
The yellows? Probably more comments about the red cards. Oh, yeah. I don't think I want to get myself or my team into any more trouble. So what I will say is muchas gracias. Good luck. Mucha suerte in the next round. Gracias. Okay.
This is Jacqueline Savixi, and you're listening to the YYC Soccer Podcast.
All right, Jason, let's quickly touch on Calgary Wild. They announced another signing this week, another Canadian player from the West Coast. Interesting to see they tapped Trinity Western University for defender Tilly James.
I think I was kind of expecting to see the Wild sign some players that are sort of in that age range where they're just graduated from university, because a lot of their players skew older than that, and you can't have your entire team being 28, 27, 28, 29-year-olds. So this sort of fills in that age gap. And then also, yeah, like I think her bio is pretty good. You know, she's had a pretty good USports career.
Really good USports career. I actually thought we'd see more players like this sign with the Wild, but maybe we'll see a few more like Canadian standout post-secondary players with the last few names of the roster. But yeah, Tilly James has been with Trinity Western for 4 years. She's won 2 Canada West championships and has been a Canada West first team and All-Canadian second team member. So really solid USports career, and now she's kicking off her pro career in Calgary.
So we're at 15 or 16 signed players for the Wild. So there are still some roster spots up for grabs. Probably, I think they were talking about the number being about 23 on a roster. So there's a good half dozen plus spots still available. And thank you for listening to the YYC Soccer Podcast. You can have this podcast downloaded to your device as soon as it becomes available by subscribing on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or other podcasting platforms. Check out our website at yycsoccer.com, where you can look through our episode archive and find other options to listen, including our YouTube channel. On our website, we also have links where you can buy Scott's book about Calgary soccer history online. You can leave us a question or comment in the Contact Us section of our website. You can also interact with us on social media, such as X or Instagram or Blue Sky, where our username is YYC Soccer 403. Thanks for listening.